Hello everyone, this is Group 2. We are presenting the first part of Chapter 14, Collective Action and Governance. And the members of our group are myself, which is Augustina, Irvin, Jeremy, Roxanne, and Lena that will be presenting. In this next slide, you can see our objectives, and these are pulled from the book from Chapter 14, and they go over our key points that we will be presenting. So to begin, nurses are knowledge workers. This means that nurses are able to put into action the knowledge and education that they have. And we know that in an increasingly complex healthcare system, it's important to have high-quality nurse performance. The IOM actually recommends that nurses obtain a Bachelor's of Science in Nursing because this level of degree takes nursing a step further. With the BSN, nurses have the skill to perform the tasks, but they also have and understand the rationale behind it. So instead of just putting in an IV and performing that functional tasks, they know why it is that the IV needs to go in and what kind of medication the patient will be receiving. And they can even question and research things or why things are done certain ways and apply the knowledge and science-based education. And by providing insight on evidence-based practice and applying analytical and theoretical knowledge, they can provide quality patient care.
Every nurse has a professional practice responsibility, and that responsibility comes from the Nurse Practice Act of each state, which governs the practice of nurses and is designed to protect the public. Nurses are also guided by the NAA's Code of Ethics. And according to the American Nurses Association, nurses must meet obligations to society and patients. They must also meet professional and legal standards. They must allow for ethical practice. They must facilitate advocacy, support fair compensation, ensure safety, and address employment conditions. Nurses must also help shape healthcare policy at multiple levels, which include the institutional, the local, and the state level. And another responsibility for nurses is that they must protect the dignity and the autonomy of nurses in the workplace. And all of those encompass the professional practice responsibilities of a nurse.
Next, we're going to be looking at workplace advocacy, engagement, and empowerment. These are three interrelated terms with overlapping meaning. So advocacy tends to focus on improving the nurse's working environment. Think of unions here in California that have worked for better nurse-to-patient ratios. These unions also tend to put together really great compensation packages for nurses, and finally think of safety guidelines. This enables the nurse to work effectively in a rapidly changing environment, and it's a two-way street between the nurses themselves, who ultimately are going to be their own best advocates, and the management and administration, who do need to also be advocating for their staff. Next, we have workplace engagement. In this role, we look at the nurse as an actively involved member of the team, not someone who's just there. And it's kind of balanced between trust and autonomy. So trust, a nurse needs to feel that their environment is safe, that they're not going to be exposed to, say, environmental hazards or an angry patient, or that they'll be protected when those situations do arise. This allows the nurse to then work confidently. But then the nurse also needs to have their own autonomy. Specifically, within their scope of practice, it benefits the nurse and the healthcare team at large that the nurse be allowed to work within the full scope of their training. And then they need to combine their personal and organizational success, tie those together. So that the nurse knows that when they are functioning at their best, that contributes to their unit or their larger organization, them functioning better as well. Finally, we have empowerment, which is just related to those two other terms, and really it kind of just embodies both of them. Because it's sharing the power and control in decision making. So if you have nurses that advocate for themselves and are being advocated for, and they're also engaged, they're ultimately empowered within their work environment, which causes improved patient outcomes, it promotes a positive working environment, and it increases job satisfaction.
Shared governance is defined as an organizational strategy that supports ownership, autonomy, and input from nurses in their professional practice. It is also an organizational framework that allows nurses to take on greater accountability. This framework is designed with the establishment of councils that represent various departments and services from within the organization, reporting and data management to improve communication, and leadership planning to support staff and demonstrate improved outcomes. Shared governance is essentially shared decision-making derived from a theoretical perspective that supports nurse engagement. Research shows that nurse engagement often leads to improved job satisfaction and patient outcomes. Effective shared governance strategies also include mechanisms for conflict resolution. Leadership should engage nursing staff to provide decision support and input regarding changes in workplace design. Nurses should also be prepared to address any issues that arise.
Collective action is defined as activities that are undertaken by a group of people who have common interests in order to achieve a common objective. The four main purposes of collective action are to promote the practice of professional nursing, establish and maintain standards of care, allocate resources effectively and efficiently, and create satisfaction and support in the practice environment. It requires a level of independence and interdependence among shifts and settings with other healthcare professionals. Often, collective action is facilitated by leader behaviors that show and encourage participative decision-making, displays confidence in employees, and promotes autonomy. Collective bargaining is defined as the process of negotiations between employers and a group of employees aimed at reaching agreements to regulate work conditions. It provides an opportunity for workers to voice opinions on issues related to employment. Often a union model is used. Topics that may require collective bargaining are adjusting salary, working hours, overtime, training, and health and safety. So what is a union? A union is an organization of workers who have come together to achieve common goals, such as protecting the integrity of the trade, improving safety standards, achieving higher pay and benefits, better working conditions, and increasing number of employees and employers assigned to work. There's also something called at-will employees. This is where an employer may terminate an employee at any time for any reason except discrimination. Nurses in these positions need to know their rights. There is something in place called the whistleblower protection, where objecting to or reporting for public interest should not lead to career damage or job loss. It is important to know these terms in order to utilize them in creating a healthy work environment.